Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we go over the Sunday morning shows that we watch so that you don't have to. I'm your host, Katie Halper, one of your hosts.
And I'm the other host, Aaron Maté. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning. How's it going?
Well, look, I'm not going to lie. This is a sad day. This is a sad day for the entire Useful Idiots Monday Morning community.
Yeah.
We are losing a legend. We're bidding adieu to a hero, really, of the Sunday news game.
One of our favorites.
Yeah.
One of America's favorites.
Yep.
But not one of CNN's favorites.
No, not anymore. That's right, everybody. If you haven't heard, Brian Stelter is leaving CNN. He did his final show yesterday of Reliable Sources, which was on the air for 30 years. And
really?
We're going to send him off. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It was the show, yeah.
But how long was he on? Because he's like, okay.
He was on for 9 years or something.
All right, yeah.
But they're taking Brian Stelter away from us. And honestly, I'm going to miss him. I am.
I know.
I'm not going to lie.
He should come on the show.
Open invitation to Brian Stelter.
Bry Stel.
Give us all the tea about what happened.
Yeah, give us all the tea.
Honestly, Katie, if you wanted, let's give him a permanent co-hosting slot.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's make room.
Just on Monday morning, because he's a media analyst, not on the regular show. Yeah. Now I do
earn his way up to Wednesday.
Yeah. We'll see.
Friday.
Yeah, it's on the community to tell us whether or not he wants to be a regular host, and we'll see that. We're going to get to how the community holds us all accountable when we review our Bry Stay. So I do want to just tell everyone that they can, of course, as happens every Monday, you can join us afterwards at Call-In. The link is in the YouTube description, and that's where we take your questions and comments and your calls. And also, you know what I'm going to say, guys. Where are we at with likes, Wilson?
Let's check. We also can check Rumble likes too.
We're on Rumble. Yeah. But
Hi, Rumble. 210 right now.
210. Guys, come on. Let's get these likes up at least to 250. Let's do it. I know people don't always like this part, but I am the martyr for this show. I just throw my dignity out the window. We
have to pump up demand, and this is how we do it.
Exactly, yeah.
By getting likes.
Yeah. This is not an insecurity thing. This is just a whatchamacallit thing. One like equals one pitch. 300. Thank you, America. Thank you, Useful Idiots, Patriots. Okay. And thank you, Tom Baer, for your generous super chat, which said, what did it say? We just had it up. Stelter is a closer. Close the show right down. Indeed. I hate when people say indeed. That's not true, but sometimes it's annoying. It can be pretentious. Indeed. Okay, so shall we start with the show?
Let's do it.
Indeed. All right, let's do it. What do we got first? We got some Chuck. We have a real great sandwich. We got a Chuck Stelter sandwich, and all the meat inside in between are other clips, but those are our two loaves. Or two slices. Yeah.
Sunday morning to
all right.
And a good Sunday morning to all of you. We are less than 3 months before the midterms, and our brand new NBC News poll paints a pretty bleak picture. Americans are angry, they're disappointed, and they are worried about the future of this country. Just 21% of adults say we are heading in the right direction, and once again, 3 out of 4 Americans say we are on the wrong track. In fact, this number, never before in our poll, has this wrong track number been over 70% for this long? It's been nearly a year now. 58%, by the way, say America's best years are behind us. That's an all-time high in our poll. So what is behind this rise in pessimism about our country's future? Well, it starts with this. Americans don't like either party, and they don't like anyone in power. Take a look at this. Both political parties are very unpopular, one slightly more than the other. It's a similar story with both the current and former presidents. With the former presidents.
Can I just say something? I never thought I'd see piece of shit right there on a poll.
POS.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the mood of the country.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah.
Our leaders are POSs.
Yeah.
It's got to be awkward for someone like Chuck, because the thing is, when you're reporting this news about how everyone hates the government, people in power, the way things are going, it's awkward because, Chuck is the spokesperson for all these people. He is their representative. He's there to try to convince people that everything is going great.
Right.
And so when he has to occasionally report the news, the accurate news that everyone is miserable and thinks the country's going in the wrong direction, it's got to be a little awkward. So, kudos to him for trying to navigate that.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a major movement on Twitter to get Chuck Todd fired because he's too critical of Biden.
Really? God.
Oh, yeah. And then all these people are threatening to leave CNN over Jake Tapper. We'll get to him later, and to go to MSNBC, which is another funny phenomenon. But anyway, all right. Should we keep playing?
Yeah.
Negatives actually rising a bit faster than we'd seen since our last poll. The current and former vice presidents, also both deeply unpopular, almost identical. And even the two politicians who have most publicly stood up to the leaders of their own parties, Joe Manchin and Liz Cheney, well, no one likes them either. And with their own parties, they are the most unpopular. So add it all up, and this country now has low confidence in a bunch of institutions, Justice Department, the Supreme Court, even our public schools. And for the first time ever, when asked what is the most important issue facing this country, the top answer was not an economic issue. It was threats to the democracy, higher than cost of living, or jobs, or guns, or even abortion. So this...
Okay, look how slick this poll is. This poll basically was engineered to make people like Chuck Todd happy, because all they talk about endlessly every single week is democracy is under threat.
Right.
We have to protect our democracy. That's why you have to watch NBC News even more and vote for Democrats every single time. But look what they did with the questions. So the most important issue, threat to democracy, is number one, right? And Chuck Todd's very happy about that. But look at the second two choices. And Michael Tracy pointed this out on Twitter. Cost of living and jobs of the economy are two separate categories for some reason.
Right.
But they're actually very similar. Cost of living and jobs in the economy.
Right.
Those two go together. So really, it's like someone very carefully split those up,
right,
so they could possibly push threats to democracy to the top and make people like Chuck Todd very happy. And of course, threats to democracy could mean anything. As Michael Tracy also pointed this out, that threats to democracy could be a partisan Democrat, concerned about January 6th. It also could be a partisan Republican, like a MAGA head who buys into Trump's Stop the Steal scam.
Right.
Yep. So, but I saw that people like Michael Beschloss, who's an NBC News pundit, were they were giddy over this result. They were so happy because this seemingly validates everything they've been talking about.
Yes, that's a very important observation. And what are the numbers for economy and cost of living?
Well, together it's 30%. It's 30% together, which is more than threats to democracy.
I wonder how they did that. I guess they did it ahead of time, obviously. Yeah, because or else they
I mean, these are the questions, and there's also not a foreign policy question on there.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
just immigration and the border, which in itself, so having that and not foreign policy is interesting, and ideologically motivated too, because anyone who cared about immigration and borders would also care about foreign policy.
Absolutely,
but they don't make those connections.
No.
Also interesting, he reviews all the institutions, some of the institutions that Americans don't have faith in. He leaves one out.
The media.
The media, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, luckily, we have a truth teller to close out the show named Brian Stelter.
Yeah.
Who's going to hold him accountable and insist on reliable sources. That's a little tease for the end.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
This is the environment in which voters are going to the polls this November. They're pretty angry. In a normal year, these numbers would forecast electoral doom for the party in power. But boy, these midterms, they're going to be unlike any we've seen in history. And I'll warn you, the old rules of politics probably don't apply.
Wow, guys, I hope you were sitting down for that warning. The old rules of the politics probably don't apply.
Kate, I've received a lot of warnings in my life, but no warning just shook me to my core is that one from Chuck Todd right there.
I'm shook as well.
The old rules do not apply. Wow.
So you know who's going to guide us through?
The Chuckster.
The Chuckster, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Guys, it's more important than ever to listen to Meet the Press. This is the time. It's not like the other times when you didn't have to. This time you got to vote with your feet by watching Meet the Press.
It's not Meet the Press. It's Heed the Press.
Heed the Press. Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, speaking of Meet the Press, let's we got more great stuff from the Chuckster and team.
Welcome back. So, Donald Trump's hold on the Republican Party. We have a poll question that we track here, and it basically, do you identify more, and this is just among Republicans, we asked you, identify more as a Republican or as a Trump supporter? And let me show you what had happened. We had been watching basically a slow erosion of support for Trump, Mark Caputo. And it was happening, and we saw it in our polls, we saw it in other polls. And then we happened to be in the field right after Mar-a-Lago and right after the search warrant was executed. And so we saw this gap close. We saw a spike in interest in the election among rural voters that showed you that there was something there. It goes to Brendan's point before, whatever it is, when it's somehow bad for Trump legally, it's good for Trump politically.
Yeah, and it's also sort of bad for the Republican Party long term, because they are looking at, and I think I quoted Brendan the other day in my story where we talked to.
Look at that tuft of hair in the back. See, it's like business in front, party in the back.
You know, can I say, Katie, the Chuckster just made a point that I've often made, and when I've made that point, I get accused of being a Trump apologist. But I've said, you know, from the start of the Trump era, that whenever Trump is targeted by the FBI, the national security state, it's a gift to him. You know, Russiagate was a gift to him because it channeled his resistance into these moronic conspiracy theories and gave him the additional gift when it collapsed and humiliation and failure. And I think that playbook has been repeated multiple times. And so Chuck just pointed out that when Trump is in trouble legally, it helps him politically. Of course it does. It helps him portray himself as a victim of the deep state, and it distracts his opposition from focusing on, you know, actual substance and policies into, you know, this intra-elite feud between Trump and elements of the national security state that don't like him. So props to the Chuckster for, I think, making actually an accurate observation.
Yeah. And people, of course, who hate Trump would be actually want to know that. Yes.
If they actually cared about beating Trump,
right,
and not just protecting their own pride, as was the case after Trump won in 2016, when instead of looking at why he won and what happened, they blame Russia and counted on Robert Mueller to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And just coming full circle, Hannah points out slight mullet, which we call a slimoo.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I just made it up just now.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Slimoo.
So guys, keep your eyes out for the slimoos moving forward.
Republicans who have talked to Donald Trump, and they said he's over the moon. He was celebrating Liz Cheney getting defeated. He's celebrating these sorts of poll numbers. He's celebrating the fact that he's raising more money. And people are thinking, oh my God, you've got like 4 or 5 criminal investigations into you.
You might go to jail and you're celebrating?
Well, as Brendan had said, I'm going to now quote him on this show, right? As he said, he'll win the Republican primary from a jail cell. And you're seeing it in these numbers.
Like Eugene V.
They
Debs,
feel, his
win.
base feels that any sort of law enforcement action or attack on him is an attack on them personally.
And I never bought the slippage. I'm sorry. Like, it was out of sight, out of mind. He was, I mean, obviously it was there in the polls. I'm not denying that. But it was out of sight, out of mind. Whatever Donald Trump reemerged, this was going to happen. We've seen it. This party is in the image of Donald Trump. Everyone who is not Donald Trump is trying to act like Donald Trump. That's because that's what voters want. Yeah. So as soon as he came back, they were going to come back to him.
Interesting little contradiction.
Of course he's fundraising more money. Of course this helps him. This does every single time.
Right.
But the problem is cable news networks and Democrats are so Trump obsessed. Democrats don't really know how to govern. So they need a foil. They need a boogeyman. And so they keep reviving Trump even when he's down. I think they had him like finished after January 6th, when everyone saw how crazy he was with the whole Stop the Steal thing. He was impeached. They had him. But they keep reviving him and giving him, you know, more and more lives. And I think that's what they're now having to grapple with. It's interesting to see at least something approaching an admission of that reality.
Right. Right. Or grappling with it, because, they are talking about, it's interesting. It's like, I feel like this week they got the memo, because note how little they're talking about Mar-a-Lago on this show.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some updates. Anyway.
To investigating Trump.
Yeah.
So overall, 57% said all these investigations continue. But when we ask specifically about January 6th, what's your confidence in that? A majority have very little or only some confidence. It was only 42% call themselves a great deal and fair amount of confidence. You know, it's almost as if the direct criticism of the lack of complete, I guess, equal bipartisanship, if you will, on the January 6th committee has taken hold with enough voters. But it doesn't mean, just because you may not trust January 6th doesn't mean you don't want Trump investigated. It's an interesting gap.
Well, if you want more investigation.
Okay, now I just want to give people a heads up. This is Ali Vitale, who started off as like a graphics producer on an MSNBC show called The Cycle, and she's now a grown-up reporter, apparently. She wrote a book in which Hillary does some crapping on Bernie Sanders as a sexist, misogynist. I'll probably on my show, or maybe on this show, do a reading of a part of that book. But basically, she sucks. And she doesn't have a Wikipedia page, which is interesting. So that's all I want to say. I don't have a lot of insights into that, except I am curious why she doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Well, let's get that going.
Let's get that going, guys.
Get to work, everybody.
Wiki Alley, yeah.
Certainly, you can take your pick of the number of investigations that are actually happening right now. You can look to Georgia, you can look to New York, you can look to the January 6th committee, you can look down the street from where we are at DOJ. Like, you've got options there if you want to see investigations keep going. I think the thing that's striking to me is that if you want to see investigations that are done in the public eye, you really have no other option other than the January 6th committee. And I think the work that they do in September is going to be really interesting, especially now that Liz Cheney, not that she was ever like operating under the premise that she had to play nice, but certainly she is unchained right now at this point. And the fact that they're talking to Pence, I think, casts this in a really fascinating light now, too.
Liz Cheney is now unchained.
Unchained.
Unchained, yes.
Yeah. See, it doesn't occur to these people that maybe voters want options other than these endless investigations of Donald J. Trump. Maybe they want to hear about issues that actually impact their lives. But this is what 6 years of this intra-elite feud does. It's just all these people can really see. And you remember when Rachel Maddow had like that wall of all the different investigations targeting Trump, and the walls were closing in. I mean, everyone's seen that montage of everyone declaring for whatever 4 years, the walls are closing in. It doesn't occur to these pundits that maybe people care about this stuff less now and trust it less, given how many times they were promised that the walls were closing in.
Right. True that. And also, I just want to say that this could be a cool opportunity for someone to do a graphic of Liz Cheney Unchained, a la Django Unchained.
Big graphic opportunity there, everybody.
Yeah, big graphic opportunity.
Yeah.
Got the gunslinging thing.
Yeah.
Get Dick Cheney behind her on one side. And maybe, I don't know, who would be the perfect Democrat to go behind her?
I mean, Adam Schiff is her.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, they're partners in crime right now.
So let me just do a screen share so that people get this sense of what I'm talking about, get some inspiration. And we're talking about something like this. Now just imagine what that would look like, guys. Just swap in a Liz and swap it for the center, and then you swap in Dick holding the gun, and then you swap in a Schiff.
I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Well, actually, we have a discussion of a real issue, which is student debt. Biden's facing a new deadline of whether or not he will continue to have a moratorium on student loan payments up to a certain amount, right?
Yeah.
And so Chuck is speaking to Educational Secretary Miguel Cardona.
American Rescue Plan, we know his community can benefit from it too.
I got to ask you before you go, we're 10 days away from the most recent moratorium on student debt to expire.
Yes.
Should we expect another temporary extension, or is a permanent fix coming?
You know, from day one, we've been really focused on making sure we're protecting our students and our borrowers. $32 billion in debt forgiveness from day one. We know August 31st is a date that many people are waiting to hear something from. We've been talking daily.
Guys, this is so exciting. He's not going to, well, I don't want to spoil the end, but they've been talking about it.
about this, and I can tell you that American people will hear within the next week or so. From
it won't
the
be nothing.
And the Department of
Is it fair to
Education
say it
on what
won't be
we're gonna
nothing
doing around that? Well, I don't have any news to announce today, Chuck, but I will tell you the American people will hear directly from us because we recognize this is an important issue across the country.
That is so nice. I'm so grateful. We are so grateful that we'll be hearing from you. Thank you so much for acknowledging the existence of Americans who want their debt canceled.
They're talking.
They're talking about it.
They're having some mind-blowing conversations.
Yeah. They're doing probably what I wonder what they're doing. Like
their conversation is like
brainstorming.
It's like, what is the least we can do
to
make it look like we're doing something?
Yeah.
About crushing student debt.
Yeah, and the film philosopher points out, say it won't be nothing. Which he won't say. But guys, I'm so reassured that they are talking about it. Yeah. By the way, all the people who say like they don't want student loan forgiveness or cancel student debt because they paid theirs off. You're not good people. Hot take. You heard it here first.
Wow. Harsh.
You may be fun at dinner parties. Probably not, though. But you don't have a good moral core. Moral compass. But you can change that. You can become a good person by changing your tune. See, this show is not just about politics, pop culture, fashion analysis, hair analysis. It also is about self-improvement.
And moral judgment.
Yeah.
We will judge you.
Yeah. But we'll also give you the tools to find your way.
All right. Well, speaking of tools, let's hear from more tools on the Sunday morning news shows. And Face the Nation interviewed Mike Turner, who is the ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. And let's hear his vision for stopping all of our worst problems.
Investigate if you were head of the Intelligence Committee and Republicans take control of the House.
By the way,
as I said from the beginning, is what I think we wanted to.
Sorry, this is Margaret Brennan is at home with a sick kid. Just so you know, that's why she's not there. Okay.
General Garland to be focusing on instead of Mar-a-Lago is Chinese espionage, certainly furthering how do we assist Ukraine in fighting Russia aggression, looking at ways that we look at what's going on at the border with human and drug smuggling and how it's affecting our families. And of course, there's always the issue of the spiraling crime that's occurring in our cities. And how can we impact that? How can we ensure that we have the right tools and information about any foreign influence that might be impacting that?
That's right, Katie. Do you know that foreign influence might be responsible for crime in cities in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Maybe more Russian trolls, like more Buff Bernie memes on Facebook. That's probably driving crime big time. We can have commission on that.
The masturbation memes are very disruptive. They drive people to crime. And that's not a joke. In case people don't know, there were the Russian bot farms that were accused of undermining democracy. One of the things they had was a graphic of Jesus, and it said, masturbating too much or have a problem with masturbation, reach out to Jesus and we can beat it together.
China is building, really efficient high-speed rail, and
which maybe could run people over.
Say it again.
Which could run people over.
Exactly. Yes, the Chinese high-speed rail they're bringing criminals over here on their high-speed rail across the ocean. It's an unbelievable feat and a big problem.
Right, and they cannot just run people over. Also, that's another way they can commit crime while working on infrastructure.
No, but I'm saying like their infrastructure, their high-speed rail is literally transporting people.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's even worse than that. That's how efficient they are.
Yeah,
they commit crimes. They bring the criminals in, and on their way, the criminals are running people over.
Yeah. Noam Chomsky has this point where he says that for Republicans to pass an infrastructure bill, they can't just call it like a public infrastructure bill. They have to call it like a China competitive act. Like
I know that's what they should do.
Well, that's what they did. Like a defeat China act or something like
Right.
that. Like that was the name. That's how to get Republicans
right.
on board with funding public
Right.
transportation and infrastructure.
Right. But they should do it more and actually get like high-speed rail and
sure. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it more competitive.
Yeah. All right. What do we got next?
Fears of nuclear catastrophe are mounting in Eastern Europe as Moscow and Kyiv accuse each other of shelling a nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine, the largest such plant on the continent. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata is in Ukraine with more.
Oh, yeah. Remember the whole proxy war that we're waging in Ukraine with billions, tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer funds, which we used to talk about on these shows, around the clock for many, many weeks. Yeah, we don't really do that anymore. But let's check back in and see how it's going. Oh, yeah, look, there's a threat of a nuclear catastrophe. Great. Oh, well.
NBD.
Yeah.
NBD, no big deal. Yeah.
Black smoke rises above the Russian Navy headquarters in Crimea. The apparent drone strike is the latest in a string of high-profile attacks penetrating air defenses deep within Russian-held territory. More fighting has been reported near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as Russia and Ukraine allow inspectors from the nuclear watchdog IAEA access to the complex. Nearly 6 months since the Russian invasion began, we revisited the scenes of some of the worst fighting in the early days of the war. The airfield at Hostomel on the outskirts of Kyiv, where outnumbered Ukrainian forces fought off elite Russian paratroopers intent on taking it over. The extraordinary amount of damage here tells the story of the ferocious firefight that took place at this airfield, a battle that would prove critical in the fight for the capital itself.
What about his hair?
If anybody remembers, this was the guy who, remember in the first few weeks of the war, there were all these like Western white pundits talking about how horrible this was to see white Europeans at war.
Blonde hair, blue-eyed.
Yeah, he was one of them. He was one of them.
And that is he himself as a gray-haired man, that makes him very intersectional. Because he can still identify with the blondes.
Back in early March, the children's summer camp near Bucha, where we found terrified Deputy Camp Director Tatiana sheltering elderly residents.
Please help us, I ask you. Next could be here. I ask you go down.
We did go down where we found the elderly and young children hiding out, even as thunderous explosions rang out. Tatiana. We found Tatiana again, alive and well this week.
I'm
so happy.
I'm too. I'm glad to see you too.
Really long hug.
Thank you. Every day I remind you and say thank you.
You look so different.
Really?
A little bit. In a good way.
We understand that we survive.
That night when I saw you?
Yes, that morning I decided that it is need to take out people from the downstairs.
Okay.
Can you help us? Thank you.
Well, I tried to help you. I didn't do much.
No, you do. You saved their life.
She said they were rescued the very next morning.
So I don't know if you caught that. She says at the end, you saved their life. And obviously she was grateful that, a news crew came and,
covered this.
I just thought that, this correspondent, Charlie, he's still making an editorial choice to leave that in, where someone's thanking him for saving the life of all these innocent civilians. And he didn't, obviously. He brought a camera there and that's great, but he didn't save their life by doing that. So I just thought that was a bit weird. He's like, let's leave it in where she says that I saved her life. Let's do it. Yeah.
And that's and also that hug was an interesting editorial decision on his part.
It was a long hug. Yeah.
It was a long hug. Yeah. You look different in a good way. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
As Russian forces closed in, but other residents.
Oh, and by the way, that editing choice to leave that in is just it's poignant because what did CBS do last week after they published after they broadcast a documentary about how the U.S. can't keep track of the weapons it's sending to Ukraine? they pulled the documentary and re-edited it because they elicited so much outrage from people who are on the side of the U.S. in the proxy war. People from the Pentagon and elsewhere complained, and so that their CBS pulled their own documentary so quickly. So that's what happens when you actually challenge war narratives. You actually censor yourself because it makes the wrong people upset. Not so the case here.
Right. Not so the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And the flip side of this is, the news will show us the suffering on the Ukrainian government side. Well, they'll never show us the suffering on the rebel-held side, in Donetsk, and all the shelling that goes on there too. We just never see that.
Right. And someone pointed out in the comments, and we can talk about this more, but a super chat said, where is this? There was a question about why Russia would be doing this. Where is that one? You asked this. Okay, maybe I'm stupid. Hold on. Can we hide the? Yeah, maybe I'm stupid. But if Russia has soldiers stationed at a power plant and plan on taking over that territory, why would they want to shell destroy it?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's a great question, and that's why the allegation that Russia is shelling a nuclear plant that it's controlling makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
And regardless, I mean, no matter who's doing it, we're not there, so who knows? Anything is possible. It underscores the need for diplomacy to end the war, not more U.S. weapons fueling it. That's what this is about. Why are we fueling a war where there's a threat of a nuclear catastrophe? There should be negotiations, but there's just no trace of that right now.
Right.
Okay. Well, we can move on to fan favorite Jake Tapper.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking to Dan Crenshaw, a Republican member of Congress.
As someone who understands just how precious intelligence can be, I'm wondering if it bothers you that there was apparently classified information in an unsecured location at Mar-a-Lago. We know that one box was labeled TS-SCI, that's top secret, sensitive, compartmented information.
Yeah. Well, look, you know me, Jake, and I'm not one to withhold criticism and even make my own side mad. I want to get to the truth. But I will be honest with you here. It's hard to justify what the Department of Justice did here, in my opinion. And here's why. Here's what it really boils down to. It's not a question that it's bad to have classified material in a non-SCIF environment, right? So that's a non-secret compartmentalized infrastructure there. That's wrong. But there's ways to mitigate that. There's ways to resolve that issue. And I still haven't seen any evidence that that Trump was even asked to give these documents back. He's been cooperating with them on these issues for a while now, for months. And so why take it to this extreme extent? And I think that's why you're seeing so much backlash from Republicans. You're seeing everyone coalesce. It doesn't matter what side of the issue they're on with Trump. You've seen a lot coalesce around this one because it does seem unjust. And there does seem to be a long history of loss of credibility at the Department of Justice at the hands of Democrats. And I think people are rightfully frustrated about that.
I think first of all, I think there are a lot of Hillary Clinton folks who would argue that, they don't think that they were treated well by the FBI.
Absolutely. So it just gets to the point, though.
But what I'll say is, and look, you're right, there's a lot we don't know. So I can't defend anything, but I will say, it did go to a magistrate judge. The FBI director signed off on it. He was appointed by Trump. There was concern, according to the documents that have been released, about whether or not information would be destroyed. So, look, a healthy skepticism about law enforcement and FBI raids is always fine and welcome as far as I'm concerned. But isn't law enforcement innocent until proven guilty as well?
Is that really how Jake Tapper sees law enforcement, that they're also innocent until proven guilty? So I don't know. With George Floyd,
right?
Should we have thought that they're innocent until proven guilty, or Rodney King, or
right?
Not that this is the same thing here. This is a raid of Trump, but
right. Well,
I hope he's not carrying that actually more broadly.
Right. I mean, how much more evidence do we need that? I mean, I'm just like today I just saw, I don't know if you saw this, but the Arkansas police beating a man outside a convenience store in Crawford County. Again, as you point out, this is different, but there is a lot of credit given to law enforcement narratives that are then undermined by evidence.
Yeah. And look, again, in the case of Trump, I have to point out that when Jake talks about how will a judge approve this, well, a judge also approved the multiple surveillance warrants on Carter Page, which were based on fraud. The FBI hid from the FISA court that it was relying on the Steele dossier, which was being funded by the Clinton campaign. And the FBI hid that, and also hid that a key source of the Steele dossier had even told the FBI that a lot of the claims in the Steele dossier were basically fake. So we don't need to automatically trust whatever the FBI says and what a judge approves.
Right. Maybe have some skepticism. Same thing about intelligence sources. Not sources, the intelligence community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So more of this guy?
Yeah, again, people signing off on it doesn't mean that it has precedent. It doesn't. This is a very unprecedented measure. And you know that when you're going after an ex-president who may run again, that this is automatically political. You cannot separate the legal aspects of this from the political aspects of it. You can't. And it doesn't seem to me like they've acted responsibly as a result of that. And look, again, why not just ask him? Why not just ask him?
Didn't they? I thought they'd been negotiating and trying to get the information from him, and
he cooperated.
But he didn't turn over boxes and boxes of material, as far as the Justice Department says.
But he's been cooperating, and I think he's on the record saying, whatever you need from us, just ask. It's great to see you guys. I mean, it was a very friendly environment.
But his lawyer said they didn't have any more classified information, and the Justice Department said, yes, you do, and they went and got it. And the only reason we know about the raid was because Donald Trump announced it.
Right. Well,
okay, I'll say this, Katie. I don't know who's right here. You know, maybe Trump is completely guilty of everything he's accused of here, or he's suspected of here. I will say this. I find this profoundly boring. And yet this will be the issue. Boxes, documents. Didn't his lawyers provide the sufficient level of privilege, warning, blah, all this legal jargon? This is going to be our life for, like, I don't know, our political life for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, you know, as Chuck Todd warned earlier, you know, things aren't the same. This is like no other. And yes,
right, unprecedented.
This dispute about boxes of documents is like no other.
The smoking boxes, as Mark Donovan says. Yeah.
The smoking boxes. Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's keep
I think
playing.
we would have figured it out even if he hadn't. But look, yes, the lawyers did sign that document. They have nothing left. Now, that's either a huge mistake on part of the lawyers, but even if it was nefarious, again, why not say, hey, we don't believe you. Now let us come back and let's go through these boxes again. There's tons of boxes here. I mean, do any of us really believe that Donald Trump is like reading his nuclear secrets on his bedside at night? Like, you know, there's an intent question here. And if you're going to use the Espionage Act, and if you're going to pursue this criminal investigation, you have to prove intent. And that doesn't seem likely in this case, right? Especially when this person has been cooperating extensively in a very friendly manner. And so that's why a lot of us jumped to the conclusion that this was highly politicized, because it was so unnecessary to do an armed raid to resolve this particular issue that could have been resolved very easily otherwise.
Well, look, I'll say this, you know, and again, we covered most recently on Useful Idiots the FBI raid on the African People's Socialist Party.
Right.
And that was a raid, that was an armed raid where, unlike in the case of the Trump raid, FBI, you know, threw flash grenades, they used drones, they pointed laser guided weapons at elderly people, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party who we interviewed, and nobody on any of these cable networks is talking about that.
Nope.
No MAGA Republicans are denouncing the FBI for that, and no Democrats, despite professing to claim that they care about Black Lives Matter and they care about law enforcement abuses. No one cares about that, because the African People's Socialist Party, that's a traditional target of the FBI, and they're outside of the establishment spectrum. So both parties have contempt for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And they put they not handcuffs, but I can't remember the term for it. The plastic things around his wrists also. Yeah. Everyone check out that interview if you haven't. Yeah. It's a good one.
All right. Well, look, we want to make sure we get all of our Stelter clips in. So let's watch a bit of
no Cheney. We don't need. Yeah, let's do a little Cheney. Yeah. Zip ties. Thank you.
Yeah.
I always think of zip ties, but that's a zip line, the thing that you go on.
Yes.
Okay,
Very different.
Very different.
After her defeat, I sat down with Liz Cheney in the January 6th committee hearing room for a wide-ranging discussion on her election loss, the committee's remaining work, and her future in the Republican Party. I began by asking her about the magnitude of her loss.
This wasn't just losing a House seat. You were in leadership. You were considered a future Speaker of the House, a potential future, maybe even the next Speaker of the House. It's a lot to give up. Any regrets?
No regrets. You know, I feel sad about where my party is. I feel sad about the way that too many of my colleagues have responded to what I think is a great moral test and challenge of our time. A great moment to determine whether or not people are going to stand up on behalf of the democracy and on behalf of our republic.
Get used to this, everybody. Liz Cheney may have lost a vote in Wyoming, but she's now a front runner in the eyes of cable news outlets and possibly even the Democratic Party, right? I mean, that's where this could be going.
Yeah, I think she's, I like that they do it in the January 6th room.
Very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, should we get to the moment
We should, but before we do that, you know what I'm going to ask for, right?
A Stelter like.
Kappa 1611 gets it. Don't forget to like, or else Katie will hurt us. Well, I don't know if I'll hurt us, but I'm not above holding Brian Stelter hostage to get some likes. Where are we at with the likes?
In the 900s, let's get to 1,000.
Yeah, let's get to 1,000. That's like ridiculous. Yeah.
You can vote for Liz Cheney too.
Yeah, you're not just giving us a like, you're giving Liz a like.
Yeah, who else can they like for?
Stelt, Tap. And someone points out, this is a good point. What about her dad's big lie?
Oh, well, that's in the past. I mean, you know,
right.
That was just a mistake. Yeah, we don't talk about that one, even though it's the most consequential big lie, really, of the century.
Right.
The whole Iraq WMDs, Al Qaeda thing. Yeah.
All right, we got 1,000 Stelter likes.
I mean, it'd be nice if we had more than that. Honestly, it's a little low. I don't know what we have to do to train you guys to like. You're telling us 900 people are watching who hate this.
Well, I'm going to play a little mood music for this upcoming
nice
segment.
I could hardly believe it when I heard the news today.
All right, that's a good setup.
And of course, that song is "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?"
Oh yes.
Now that I've been loving you so long, yeah. By not John Bolton, another beloved Bolton, Michael Bolton.
Yes.
All right, where are we in the likes, Wilson?
$1.1K.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'm not feeling great
job.
about it, but we'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more than half of who's watching. So let's hit it.
You know, the thing about TV is that it's ephemeral, right? It's fleeting. It evaporates up into the air, and a lot of it is not even meant to be. A lot of it's not even meant to be remembered. But this program transcended that. It's a part of journalism school curriculum. Teachers across the country and in other countries outside the U.S., teachers use segments from this show all the time in classrooms, in lessons, guiding and teaching the next generation. You know, founding host Bernard Kalb and founding executive producer Rick Davis said this program was meant to be a critical lens on the media. Such a special phrase, a critical lens on the media. And this week, thanks to CNN management, we've been given the gift of signing off on our own terms and actually talking about the media industry.
Look, what he says there about how the show is being taught in schools. What if the show's cancellation actually saves the education system? That this has been the problem all along. You know, this could be a turning point. If reliable sources is no longer being taught, this could do wonders.
Turning Point USA.
Yeah.
I mean, they could also show our show.
Yes, that would really help the youth to watch us make fun of cable news shows. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Well, look, so, so let's keep going. So Brian Stelter, as we talked about earlier, this is his last Reliable Sources show, and he's leaving CNN. And so he went out in style with some of his favorite guests, including the veteran Washington Post reporter, Carl Bernstein.
Yeah, and also really quickly, important point, which is that 80 billion. Can you hide it for a second, Wilson? Sorry. 80 billion to Ukraine and only 43 billion to to get rid of student debt. Is that correct?
Are you asking me? I don't know.
Oh no, I don't know. I'm just saying. I think it's in that area.
Yeah, I mean that's
much more. Yeah, is that we don't know. So actually, we don't know if it's correct. But the fact giving more to a proxy war in Ukraine than to getting rid of student debt is kind of on brand for the Dems.
Absolutely, of course,
yeah.
Absolutely,
and for Republicans, but we expect that from Republicans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this book,
and thanks, Scott Johnson, for your generosity.
In this book, Chasing History, I think the most important line in the book, it's about what I learned as a 16, 17, 18-year-old going to work in journalism, is the line that I was taught by great reporters covering civil rights. And that is that the truth is not neutral. The truth is not neutral. That doesn't mean that we have to be fair in all we cover. We have to give acknowledgement to two sides. We have to be judicious but not judicial. I know there's been a lot of angst about, for instance, calling Donald Trump, not on this network, but all over, a criminal. Well, we called Nixon a criminal president in reporting on Watergate. In fact, he never was convicted of a crime, but he was a criminal president. Donald Trump is a serial liar, as I once called him on the air, and I said to myself, I hope that doesn't sound pejorative, because and I reported what most Republicans in the Senate of the United States regard him as. So I think we've got to do a better job explaining to our readers and our viewers what we do and how we do it, and at the same time, the bottom line has got to be the best obtainable version of the truth, and in fact, the truth is not neutral. Ask yourself this question. Is a lynching neutral? I've covered those kinds of stories. It's not neutral.
It's not neutral.
Guys, lynchings are not neutral.
Mind-blowing insight.
Yeah.
And what Carl Bernstein is doing there to Brian Stelter's enthusiastic agreement is basically trying to paint criminality in office as singularly Donald Trump or Richard Nixon. And this is why Trump works so well for these people, is because they've spent their career serving other criminals. But because Trump was bad for the brand of official criminality, his crimes and lies were somehow then deemed to be unique. And we had to speak out against them while whitewashing and apologizing for all the other criminals that have held power and still hold power today. And that's essentially what the function of the show was over the last few years. And that's why it became known as being so partisan, is because it could only look at the crimes of one particular individual while whitewashing others, and still claiming to defend a free press, while, for example, never speaking about, or very rarely speaking about, the single biggest threat to the free press, which actually came from Trump. And that is the persecution of Julian Assange. Right. But because Julian Assange is also a target of the same establishment that these two pundits represent and advocate for, he had to be ignored.
Right. And of course, who's continuing that and deviating from the Obama decision to lay off of Assange? That would be Joseph Biden.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, did we call George Bush a criminal?
Yeah, they wouldn't. They never would. Or a liar. No, they wouldn't.
Right, we did. Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would, but of course they never would.
Yeah.
Like the most they'll say is they made mistakes. They got they got it wrong.
They got the intel wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna
move on to
we got some more stealth.
Yeah.
Oh, we're on the outro.
Yeah, I know.
This is Brian Stelter's goodbye, everybody.
Everyone grab a box of tissues.
You know, this is a really, really unusual day. TV networks rarely have a show like this, a show all about the media. And networks, even more rarely, cancel a show but still let it have one more live episode. I don't know if I've ever seen this happen before, okay? So here we are, together, in a super strange situation. So let's talk about it, okay? The phenomenal Reliable Sources producing team has been working around the clock on this special hour ever since Thursday. No one from CNN management has reviewed my script ahead of time. They have no idea what I want to say. And as the control room very well knows, I typically go off script anyway. So I want to thank a few people and then tell you what's on my mind. First, I want to thank my wife. This is a selfie that she snapped on the very first day.
I mean, this is a callback to remember when Brian Stelter, this was a fan favorite moment for all of us, when he said he was going rogue.
Oh, yeah.
After the firing of Jeff Zucker,
Yeah.
he said, and him going rogue was just then him going into like an extended defense of CNN and
Right.
how great it is.
Yeah. How the Zucker was a heat shield. Zook.
Oh, yes.
Zook. Yeah.
Yeah,
Zook,
that was
yeah.
rogue.
That was rogue, yeah.
Yeah.
The very first day I had the honor of hosting this show. That was right before we were about to get married. Before all the kids, before all the craziness. But every Sunday I was here with you, my home team was working too. So thank you, Jamie. And to my kids, my amazing kids, sometimes it feels like the only time they ever really want to play with me at home is when I'm running out the door to work.
Aw.
They're going to be in for a surprise this week, right? Thank you to Jeff Zucker for believing in me, for having the back of this organization for so many years, for having my back through everything, even through the death threats. Thank you to Amy and Tellis for calling me that day and asking me to try out for Reliable Sources. Thank you to Andrew Morse for letting me expand the Sunday show into a newsletter and a podcast and more. And this might sound weird, but thank you to CNN's current boss, Chris Licht, for letting us say goodbye. Thank you to everyone at CNN Business for digital leadership. Thank you to my hero and executive producer, Jonathan Auerbach, and the producing team that makes.
Chris Licht is getting boot-licked right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that he got death threats. So that's something. And why would you threaten Brian Stelter?
Yeah.
I mean, whoever did that, I mean, rethink your life.
Seriously, yeah.
Come on. I mean, you shouldn't death threat anybody, but especially, I mean, Brian, yeah. Anyway,
he's obviously a very nice guy.
Yeah, look, let me say a few nice words. It's obvious from the show and seeing these clips over the years, he really loves his job and he's very passionate about the media and knows a lot about it. The problem is he's so servile to just one wing of the media.
Right.
And, for example, won't apply his same love for a free press to someone like Julian Assange, who's being persecuted for the crime of journalism. So it's obvious somewhere in him he has a certain passion for media and communicating with people and reaching a mass audience, and all that's great. It just would have been nice if he, extended his passion beyond just the small circle of those who serve power to also look at those who challenge power. And Julian Assange is the foremost example.
Makes this possible. Jamie, Diane, Eden, April, I will do whatever I can to help you all in the future. Thank you to the technical staff, the control room geniuses, the editors, the floor directors, the PR people, the camera operators, the guest readers, the makeup artists. You are CNN's sources of strength, and we need strength. Some of you know I've been a media junkie for a long time. I was the kid who spent his days building the school website and producing the school TV.
He took the earpiece out.
He took out the earpiece. He's going rogue.
Off script.
He's going rogue.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Maybe they're like, Brian, stop saying what you're saying. It's too threatening. You're going off script. Take out the earpiece. Yeah.
Show. And deep down inside, I think I'm still that kid. I never thought I'd actually be on TV. I might have dreamed about it. I never thought it would happen. I just liked writing about TV. I know this is going to sound like BS, but I actually thought I didn't have enough hair to be on TV. I am just that kid who loves television and loves the internet. and thinks that these are incredibly powerful forces in our society and believes that we need to interrogate that power and face it head on and figure out how to make these tools work for us and not against us. That's what it's all about, right? That's what Reliable Sources have been about. It's documented and dissected the changing media world for 30 years. I mean, we're living through an era of dizzying change. We have supercomputers in our pocket. We are all members of the media now. That's probably the biggest change that's happened while this show was on the air. And by the way, that's why it's loony to say the media is the enemy of the people. The media is the people. People are flawed and opinionated and curious and hopeful and believing in accountability. And that's the watchword here. Accountability. So this show's going away, but there's going to be so many more. We need to have room for media criticism and debate and discussion, and we will. So much of the media ecosystem in 2022 is garbage, but so much of it is spectacular. The hard part's sorting out the treasure from the trash. These are thorny, complicated things. I know I never had all the answers. I didn't even always have all the questions, but it was the gift of a lifetime to get to confront these issues on international television with the backing of CNN. Here's what I do know. I know it's not partisan to stand up for decency and democracy and dialogue. It's not partisan to stand up to demagogues. It's required. It's patriotic. We must make sure we don't give platforms to those who are lying to our faces. But we also must make sure we are representing the full spectrum of debate and representing what's going on in this country and in this world. That's why CNN needs to be strong. That's why I believe CNN will always be strong. You viewers at home, it's on you. CNN must remain strong. I know the 4,500 staffers are going to do their part to make it stronger than ever. But it's going to be on you to hold CNN accountable. And not just CNN. You got to hold your local paper accountable. You got to hold your local digital outlet accountable. It's on all of us.
CNN must remain strong, Katie.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Do we have to all go volunteer at CNN just to make sure it's strong?
We should give blood.
Yeah, give blood. Do what you can, everybody. Let's have a World War II-esque drive, mobilization.
Yeah.
Keep CNN.
Rosie the Riveter style. Yeah.
Look, when he talks there about, not being partisan, okay, was it partisan to push Russiagate for multiple years and never allow on a dissenting voice? Like never, ever, ever, ever. Was it partisan to parrot the lie that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation and never do a serious look at that complete scam? You can go down the list. So that's the problem. And this is why, it's too bad that there's been no willingness on the part of these cable pundits to reflect on why their viewers have abandoned them, is because they have been partisan. They have acted as partisan hacks, and people eventually lose that trust. And it hasn't sunk in yet, unfortunately.
We are all members of the media, all helping to make it better.
How?
That's what I believe. I can't wait to be watching CNN, seeing what happens in the future. I'm going to be rooting for it. I want CNN to be strong. I believe America needs CNN to be strong. I believe the free world needs CNN to be strong. And it will continue to be, because all of us are going to help make that happen. The free world needs a reliable source. So, for Reliable Sources, for the last time, I'm Brian Stelter. Thanks for being with us.
If anybody's looking for a tattoo inspiration, how about that on your back? The free world needs a reliable source. Stelter.
Yeah. The free world needs a reliable source, and the free world needs CNN.
Yep. Yeah.
There's very dramatic music at the end. We should use that.
Well, look, it's never nice to see someone lose their job. And again, even though there was so much partisan hackery going on, you can tell this is someone who really loves their job. And that's, no matter what, how much, I may disagree with everything Brian Stelter did, I still appreciate how much he loved what he did.
Yeah.
And it's I feel for him in that sense.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure he will be back to doing his brand of media coverage very, very soon.
Now, do you want to see something he tweeted?
Sure, yeah.
About to walk up the stage. My final CNN show starts in 10 minutes.
So you can tell he loves what he does. He absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Look at that grin. Yeah. Well, Katie, it's going to be hard for us going forward.
Really hard,
Brian. Yeah. I mean, He was the closer for our show. He really was the closer every week, or as much as we could. And so we'll see what comes next. But the world needs a reliable source. It
does, and which is why we want you to watch this show, Useful
That's
Idiots. Guys, if you're upset that Brian Stelter's off the air, well, we have news for you. We got a reliable source right here.
That's right.
And if you haven't already, give us a like. All right. Now where to? You guys haven't had enough of us, have you? No? Well, we're going to see you on Call-In.
That's right now.
Come on down.
And for more bonus content, you can support us and sign up at usefulidiots.substack.com.
Yeah. And make sure you watch our interview from last week. It was really good.
Yeah. And you're going to have the chairman on the Katie Halper show this week, right?
I'm having Amalia Shatella on the Katie Halper show this week. We're going to get into some stuff that we didn't get into on Useful Idiots, more about his past, which is fascinating. He went to jail. He went to prison for ripping down a racist mural in St. Petersburg. And we just want to make sure that we're trying to elevate this story because it's not getting the attention it deserves. And it's a really important time to do it, given all this talk about abolishing the FBI and all these conservatives who are upset about what the FBI does with overreach. So we know you're going to tune in for this one.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you on Call-In.